The morning of June 30th, 1908, began quietly over the remote Siberian wilderness. The sun rose over endless swathes of taiga, pine, larch, and spruce trees standing like silent sentinels in a land so vast and wild that human footsteps were rare. But by mid-morning, the sky above the Podkamenaya Tunguska River would bear witness to a force unlike anything seen before. A force so powerful it would flatten forests for miles, shatter windows hundreds of kilometers away, and be remembered as one of the most mysterious explosions in modern history. It began with a streak of light. Witnesses, reindeer herders, hunters, and a few scattered villagers described a glowing object tearing across the morning sky, brighter than the sun. The air trembled as if reality itself had been pierced. Seconds later, a blinding flash lit up the horizon, followed by a shockwave so violent it knocked people off their feet. Over the next moments, the ground shuddered, and the sound of the blast rolled across the land, echoing like thunder trapped in the Earth's chest. In the aftermath, a strange wind tore through the forest, uprooting trees as though they were matchsticks. For hundreds of square miles, the lush Siberian taiga was reduced to a wasteland. An estimated 80 million trees flattened, radiating outward from a single point like the spokes of a wheel. What made it stranger was this: there was no crater, no mountain torn apart, no gaping wound in the earth where the blast began. Just devastation and silence. In 1908, the region was so remote that it took years before any scientific expedition reached ground zero. Roads didn't exist, and rivers froze half the year. When Russian mineralogist Leonid Kulik finally arrived in 1927, nearly 2 decades later, what he found defied logic. Trees near the center of the blast stood upright, stripped of branches, scorched and lifeless, as if a wave of fire had passed over them. Further out, millions of trees lay in perfect radial patterns, all pointing away from the blast site. It was as if an invisible fist had punched the earth, and everything around it had recoiled in an instant. Local Evenki people spoke of a fire god descending from the sky, of animals vaporized where they stood, and of an unbearable heat that turned the air itself into flame. Some refused to go near the area for years, believing it cursed. So what could unleash such power? Later calculations estimated the energy released to be between 10 and 15 megatons of TNT, roughly 1,000 times stronger than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Yet without a crater or obvious debris, scientists were left with a puzzle. The leading theory, still held by many today, is that a meteor or comet entered Earth's atmosphere and exploded in the air, a phenomenon known as an airburst. Traveling at tens of thousands of miles per hour, the object would have encountered immense atmospheric pressure, heating so rapidly that it disintegrated in a fireball miles above the ground. The resulting shockwave would have flattened the forest without leaving an impact crater. If true, the Tunguska event was a cosmic near-miss. Had the object exploded over a city instead of empty wilderness, the loss of life would have been unimaginable. But not everyone agrees with the meteor theory. Over the decades, other explanations have emerged, each stranger than the last. Some scientists have suggested that the object could have been a fragment of a comet, composed mostly of ice. This would explain the lack of physical debris, as the ice would have vaporized on entry. Others propose a miniature black hole passing through Earth, warping space as it went. More speculative minds have wondered if it was a failed alien craft, or perhaps even an intentional detonation, an event orchestrated by intelligences beyond our world. In the 1970s and 80s, as Cold War paranoia mingled with UFO fascination, entire books were written proposing extraterrestrial involvement. The symmetry of the blast zone, the absence of a crater, and unusual atmospheric effects reported in Europe, glowing night skies for days afterward, were seen as hints that something more than a rock from space was at play. Even more curious is the fact that after the blast, seismographs in distant cities recorded unusual tremors, and weather stations noted changes in atmospheric pressure. In London, nearly 5,000 miles away, people claimed they could read newspapers at midnight without artificial light due to the strange luminescence in the sky, possibly caused by fine particles hurled high into the atmosphere. Then, there's the human side. The few people who were close enough to feel the full brunt and live to tell the tale spoke of intense heat, a roaring sky, and the sensation of the ground turning over. Some suffered burns. Others were temporarily blinded. One man recalled being thrown from his chair by a blast of hot wind, his clothes nearly torn off. In the aftermath, hunters reported finding scorched reindeer carcasses and strange patterns in the ground where vegetation never regrew. Even today, more than a century later, the site remains haunting. The forest has regrown in many areas, but the flattened trees from 1908, now silver and skeletal, still lie in silent testimony. Scientists have taken soil and tree core samples, finding traces of rare minerals and isotopes, clues perhaps, but never a definitive answer. In recent years, satellite imaging and computer models have given us more insight into what may have happened. Simulations of an asteroid 150 to 200 feet in diameter entering the atmosphere at the right angle match much of the devastation. But the lack of universally accepted proof means the Tunguska event continues to sit at the crossroads of science and mystery. There's something deeply humbling about the thought. In the grand sweep of Earth's history, Tunguska was a small event, minuscule, compared to the asteroid that ended the age of the dinosaurs. And yet, for the human beings who lived through it, it was apocalyptic. It's a reminder that our world exists in a cosmic shooting gallery where massive objects hurtle through the darkness, unseen until they're upon us. Standing in that Siberian forest today, you can still imagine it. The quiet morning, the sudden blaze in the sky, and the unimaginable force tearing through the trees. The air would have tasted of smoke and heat. The silence after would have been deafening. Perhaps that's why the Tunguska event still captures our imagination, because it's both a warning and a wonder. A warning that nature and the universe itself can unleash forces beyond our control. A wonder because, in this instance, fate placed the explosion over wilderness instead of human lives. So what do you think really happened over the Tunguska River that morning in 1908? Was it an asteroid or comet, an alien craft, or something science has yet to name? Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of history's most explosive mysteries. I'd love to hear your theories in the comments. I read every one. And if you enjoyed traveling through the unknown with me, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, keep wondering and keep searching.